Welcome to the West London Business Company Spotlight Series, sharing stories from the UK's global gateway. We are the West London experts, and we provide leadership for the world's most connected place to catalyse action for people and planet. Throughout this series, we will be delving into West London businesses to find out how they have grown, the support the West London business has provided, and what we can do to support them further. West London has a rich cultural history and is home to makers, developers, educators, retailers, and so much more. Doing business in West London is great, and we want to make it greater. I'm your host, Amelia Grant, and this is the West London Business Company Spotlight. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for episode 2. And whether you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, I hope your latest dip into the West London business scene will inspire you. Today's focus is around sustainability, and today's guest can rightly claim to be an expert in the field and a true ambassador. Wrapology works closely with brands to design, develop and manufacture their sustainable packaging solutions. Founded in 2001, Wrapology is now based in London, Hong Kong and China, and boasts an enviable order book containing clients from the worlds of beauty and fragrance, jewellery, luxury and fashion retail, sports and luxury food and drink. Wrapology's journey with West London business began in 2020, just before the pandemic hit in earnest. It seems a lifetime ago now, and a time when business practices were revolutionised. Initially joining as a member of West London Business's Park Royal Business Group, Wrapology was named West London Company of the Year at the 2020 West London Business Awards. And the awards keep flowing, from being awarded a silver CSR rating from Ecovardis in 2019 to being honoured with a Queen's Award for Enterprise in International Trade just this April. It's a business story that is fascinating as much as it is inspirational and a testament to vision and determination. To tell me more about it is Wrapology's co-founder and Director of Sustainability, Annika Bosanquet. How are you today, Annika?
Oh, great. The sun is shining and so we are good. It's a good start for the day. I'm feeling really energized. I've got a really high rating on what they call on my mojo after being at one of the trade shows yesterday, where we are looking at ESG and implementing that across SMEs.
There's lots going on at the moment.
There is, and it's really promoted by West London, and of course the funding that we received here for the Mayor of London to try to understand and then integrate ESG across SMEs. We started off in the Climate Essentials programme. That's been absolutely terrific for us, and from that we've been moving on to our carbon neutral monitoring across the business. So I'm really excited about implementing that across the supply chain.
Oh, that's great news, and thank you for being such a great founder and proponent of our Better Futures programme.
Well, I accept that, thanks very much, but actually we see it as our responsibility, because now all businesses must do everything that they can to try and get those values in there, and if they can go a little bit further with the support of, grant funding or organisations like yourself to understand, measure and evidence the impact that they're doing across the supply chain, then I think it's our duties to do that.
Yeah, well said. Annika, we found a quote from you that you've used previously. It's not what you give, it's how you give it. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more about that and how it's moulded your approach to sustainability.
Oh, do you know what? This is a quotation which it comes originally from an anthropologist called Marcel Mauss, and he was looking at the Trobriand Islands, and it was something that I picked up on my degree of social anthropology at the London School of Economics, and it was very much about being able to tell stories in the way that you're giving things, and packaging is very much about that. As we're giving gifts to each other, or as we're passing products from one place to the next, we're really telling about what's going on with the product inside of it. So anyone can be giving something to somebody else or buying something from somewhere, but if it doesn't come well presented, then, and with correct information on the outside of it, how do you know what you bought into or what you're about to accept? So giving and using packaging then to tell the story of what's inside is very important. And it's even more important now as people are buying things directly from the internet through social media channels. It's very important that brands manage to maintain their presence in the hands of their consumers. The unboxing moment is absolutely critical. And people are making more informed choices as some of the resources are becoming less, they're becoming scarcer. So the choices that we're making in what we're spending and consuming have to be even more informed. And that's everything from the integrity of the product, what it's used for, how it makes you feel, and any of the key benefits that you might get by taking that product into your hands.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in actually looking into that a little bit more in terms of how your journey started into the sustainability field because in the early years of Wrapology, what was the general feel for being green in the packaging landscape?
So I've always loved paper. I'm not a very good cook, but I do love making things, and making things with paper is my next thing that I try and do in order to get some creativity into things. But the other thing about paper is that it comes from a raw material, it comes from a natural source. So we've very much been in tune, Tom and I, who's my co-founder and brother, in terms of where materials and resources come from. So if they're coming from the land, we have to make sure that we look after the land. So for us to be sustainable, it's always been there. And then as we moved forward in our business, probably as we got to around about 2016, 17, of course, then we had David Attenborough doing his Blue Planet. It became a little bit more on the agenda for some people. For us, I ended up going to the Cranfield School of Management to do an executive program in business growth. And one of the big things which I thought, which we have to really tackle, Tom and I, is how to ingrain our personal values of sustainability across the business, both with our employees, with our clients, with our suppliers that we're dealing with all around the world, with shipping to 22 countries and more. We have to be very sure that everybody accepts that we have to really do our bit to try and conserve the scarce resources that we've got on around us.
Yeah, well said, and I think that's absolutely true. And what do you think is the sort of next step, and what areas of innovation can Wrapology take on from here? And once everybody has caught up with you, Annika, how will you then differentiate yourself, do you think?
Well, thankfully, the market is catching up really quickly. I strongly believe in green growth. We love it when customers challenge us because they're catching up and they're demanding more from us. For us, of course, it's evidencing to become climate neutral. It's very important and carbon neutral in our products. Obviously, B Corp is something that's there on the agenda. But generally, just keeping on to make sure that we're being even more innovative in the way that we communicate to people, and that includes warehouse managers. Can they buy products that are just a tiny bit smaller to take a tiny bit less space up on their racking or in their shipping? Can we make sure that all of our materials are mono materials so that customers can make the informed choice of buying packaging that's entirely recyclable when it then is going at the end of the life of that product? Paper can generally be used or reused about 7 times. So we want to make sure that as it's being recycled, it frustrates the recycling plant as little as possible, so we can get maximum value out of reusing and reusing and reusing all the materials that we're using. So I'm afraid I'm not going to suggest anything particularly new, apart from just use less to start with and be more responsible in the way that you're putting builds and materials together and how you're then moving them.
And then, you're a fantastic networker, and you've been involved in all sorts of different networking opportunities in West London business, as I know. And we've already talked a little bit about the Better Futures program and advice for SMEs. But what would be your advice and your key top tips, Annika, for anybody who is looking to start their journey to net zero?
That is a very good question. I think the first one would be keep talking to your peer group. Running a business can be quite a daunting and isolating situation, and we've all been there in COVID. The first thing is have a really good network around you. Talk to other people at your level or across different businesses who are running businesses or doing the same job as what you're doing in other business. And you know what? See how they're doing it. Learn from each other. That would be the first thing. There's a lot of frustrations, but actually when you share the frustrations with other people doing similar jobs, you realise you've all got the same problems. And just sitting talking about them means you can go back to your businesses and make minor tweaks which will have major effects on the business. That would be the first thing. Even things like when you're interviewing new staff members, try to make sure what their personal approaches are towards environmental well-being. So I think ingraining those values and learning from other people is really key. Of course, I would say certified third-party learning is also really good if you can access some of that. There's lots of grants available for part-time MBAs or executive programs, and there's lots of them. Do them if you can. The third thing is really take advantage of some of the R&D tax credits. The UK government is really pushing hard for the UK to drive green growth. So they're there to help you for the right kinds of models. So I'd say there's a whole load of places where you can go, but don't give up. Just be prepared to do it a little and often, and over time, this consistency will prevail.
Could you tell me how you have sought to bring your employees on board in Wrapology's sustainability journey, and how you might advise SMEs who think that they can't afford to do their carbon monitoring?
Yes, sure. I mean, when we first started all of this off, everybody says they're very sustainable in their personal lives, but trying to get that into the office is really difficult. It's no mean feat at the very start, and we were doing it before it was really publicly acknowledged that there was an urgency there. The first thing we did is we had a little employee garden where we had around about 30 different varieties of plants outside and encouraged people to water them. It was not very easy, I have to say. Obviously, recycling the office was something that was really key. Of course, when we're interviewing people, we have the same questions, how are you in your approach to recycling and sustainability? But another thing that we do is we put into our systems and programs, for example, we use QuickBooks to do our finances, and we put a column in there to ask the question is, what is the CO2 value of this product we're buying? It could be stationery from someone like Viking, or it could be, accountancy services, or in our case, the shipping costs and the logistics. We have to fill in that column. And it's okay if somebody says, I don't have the answer right now. At least the employee has asked the question. And over a period of 12 to 18 months, people get used to it and they're like, hang on, it's really important. They have to keep asking the question. So that's really how we managed to get people on informally before we then put them onto programs such as doing FSC certification, getting them involved in things such as climate essentials and scope reporting, or even then moving now on to climate partners for net carbon and carbon neutral monitoring.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you, Annika. So having just won a Queen's Award and how that must make you feel on top of the world, what else can you possibly aim for? So tell me a little bit about what the next steps for Wrapology are, and how people can find out more about your business.
Well, we are one of 226 winners. So we're delighted to have won, but we are with a whole load of other businesses here in the UK have also done their bit. And so I'm sure each and every one of them are just there flying the flag for just hang in there and just keep trying to do small improvements for growth. And I think growth is still where we're at. But growth means lots of different things to different people now, I think. And the well-being of both the company and the people and the land and the community is a really important relationship. So for us, we would definitely like to grow further. We grew a lot over COVID. We grew by around about just over 50%. So we're really, really pleased with that because we've got strong relationships with our customers and with our suppliers. So I would say building a stronger community around us and keeping on those strengths and relationships and deepening those partnerships is how not just Wrapology can do, but how we can all do, because we are much stronger together.
Annika, it's been so wonderful to speak to you today, and thank you for your time. It's always inspirational to listen to you, and I look forward to following your progress over the next months and years.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you very much to West London for Business, because it's really been there through thick and thin and teaching us so many things that we absolutely have to keep learning about. So thank you.
That brings this episode of our company spotlight to a close. Keep an eye out for our next edition, where we'll be profiling another inspirational organisation. If you're interested in finding out more about what we're doing at West London Business to support organisations on their sustainability journey, including the Better Futures programme, you can drop me an email at amelia.grant@westlondon.com, or you can visit the link to the Better Futures website to find out more. Until we meet again, have a lovely day.